Good evening and welcome to the October 18th, 2021 regular scheduled meeting of the Richland County Recreation Commission. The Richland County Recreation Commission operates its meetings in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order. A voice vote will be taken for all items that require a vote. Please answer yes or no when presented with the option to vote. In accordance with Robert Rules of Order, before a board member can obtain the floor, please address the chair or presiding officer. In addition, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available to the public on the agency's YouTube channel. Lastly, please speak directly into the microphone to ensure that the listening public can hear. Thank you.
Can I go ahead and get a, thank you for that. Can I go ahead and get an adoption of the agenda? Yeah, can I get somebody to adopt the agenda?
Make a motion that we adopt the agenda as written.
Second,
1 second.
Present?
you say yes or no.
Yes. Oh, yeah, yes.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Mobley,
Which agenda are we adopting?
Ashley Miller is present.
We got 3 on here. Agendas.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but which one of these are we adopting? Which agenda? Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Singleton,
Yes.
Thank you. So we're now going to move into an ethics presentation. I can take up to 6 o'clock-ish. Hopefully, yeah. Good. Well,
I can answer that.
all right. So then we're going to ethics.
Philippine would like to introduce the Executive Director of the South Carolina Ethics Commission, Mrs. Megan Wall.
Good evening. I am Nick Walker. I'm the Executive Director of the State Ethics Commission. Can y'all hear me? I'm going to remove my mask, the rest of you mask, so I can speak clearly. If at any point in time you have questions about anything I'm saying, about your duties as public members, and we'll talk about what that, about your duties as public members under the Ethics Act, or there's public employees in here as well, or your duties as public employees under the Ethics Act, please stop me and ask the question. I don't want to scream formal. My goal is not formality. My goal is for everyone to understand by the end of this conversation what their duties are. So we call this avoiding the $10,000 fine. And the reason we call it that is one, to get your attention. The second reason we call it that is because ethics complaints or ethics issues for public officials, public members, or public employees are resolved via fines. And these are fines that are not paid by the Richland County Recreation Commission. These are fines that are paid by the individual who is accused of violating the act. Is that right there, bro? All right.
You're right about that.
So as we're going through this, keep that in mind that this is coming out of your pocket if there's a violation of the Ethics Act. So keep that in mind and ask any questions that you may have. Is that fair? All right. Thank you. So the State Ethics Commission was founded in. There we go. The State Ethics Commission was founded in 1975. It was founded around the same time as ethics commissions started popping up across the country. So what's happening in America in the 1970s that makes government ethics a big deal?
Civil rights.
No, think about corrupt government. Nixon. There you go, right? So you have Watergate. And if there is anything happening at the federal level that seems to be a little sketchy to citizens in terms of government ethics, those lights that are shining on the federal level inevitably come down and start shining at state and local government. So the spotlight gets bigger. And once we had that issue, you have the Ethics Commission at the time. In 1991, we get what is called the Ethics Reform Act. It's at Title 8, Chapter 13 of the South Carolina Code of Laws. And it's the body of laws that we are currently under as public officials, public members, and public employees. Okay. That comes in 1991 in reaction to Operation Lost Trust. How many of you have heard of that? What do you remember about Operation Lost Trust?
Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's where the legislators were accused of corruption, and it was a big court trial, and quite a few of them actually went to jail.
Right. So before I became the executive director, that is a live mic. Before I became the executive director of the State Ethics Commission, I was a prosecutor for a long time. And one of the things that I learned while prosecuting is that once you purchase a kilo of cocaine, your life is going to spiral out of control very quickly. And that is what happens here. You have a lobbyist who purchases a kilo of cocaine. Unfortunately for him, he purchased it for an undercover FBI agent. And his response was basically, if you think buying a kilo of cocaine is bad, you should see what I buy when I go to the State House. And over the course of that investigation, you have individuals who are exchanging votes for money. And so we get the Ethics Reform Act, and that is still governing us to this day. As a result of Operation Lost Trust, 17 members of the General Assembly were convicted and 7 lobbyists were convicted. And that really has shaped ethics laws in South Carolina. So recent changes. In April of 2017, some changes were made. Prior to that, there were 9 commissioners, all of whom were appointed by the governor. Could that possibly be problematic? If you have one government public official saying, these are the people who are going to investigate government officials, right? So that base of power has been spread out. We now have 8 commissioners, 4 of whom are appointed by the governor, 1 by House Republicans, 1 by House Democrats, 1 by Senate Republicans, and 1 by Senate Democrats. And now, for the first time in the history of this state, we have the ability to investigate issues regarding members of the General Assembly. We do the investigation and turn it over to whichever body is appropriate. So what does that mean for everybody in this room? It means that by choice, we have subjected ourselves to laws that most citizens are not subject to. It is by choice in terms of whether we're going to volunteer to be a public member or we sign up to be public servants through public employment. So at that point, we either become public officials, public members, or public employees. Public officials are any elected or appointed official in the state and the candidates for that office. Public members, such as yourselves, are individuals appointed to a non-compensated part-time position on the board, commission, or council. Or public employees, everybody else in this room, anybody who is employed by state or local government. What you didn't hear me talk about were federal employees or federal officials because we don't have jurisdiction over them. Our jurisdiction is at the state and local level. So there are certain things that you cannot do as a public member or as a public employee. One of the things, especially in these kind of highly polarized times, that can get you in the most trouble is influencing the outcome of an election using government resources. No person may use government funds, property, or time to influence the outcome of an election. And what that means is if you have a friend who's running for office, you can't come in and print out the flyers on the commission's copy machine. You can't sit at the meeting and say, hey, everybody remember to vote next Tuesday and vote for so-and-so. You can't, from your state or local government issued computer, send out campaign literature. If you have a cell phone, do any of you have cell phones provided by the county? You should not be conducting any campaign activity using that cell phone. So that doesn't mean that your voice is silenced. That doesn't mean that you cannot participate in the political process. What it means is that you can't use government funds to do so or government resources, including the time or the property of the government, including this very building. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Conflicts of interest. So there are things that people get in trouble for a lot. Yes, sir.
I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's not related to an individual as much as if, let's say Executive Director Watson's called by candidate A
Mm-hmm.
and says, I'd like to pass out water at facility A. Give out food or whatever. Is that allowed? Is that?
So at a point in which an individual is coming on and campaigning on the government property, that starts to raise red flags. So what we would advise, because there are certain instances, for example, if you go to a high school football game, you say you may see a candidate for office outside, waving and shaking hands. That is one thing where the space is at that point in time open to the public. The primary purpose of that is to entertain and provide sporting entertainment. Whereas we would differentiate that from you sitting in here and advocating for a candidate at the meeting. So what we would recommend is a couple of things. One, call us and walk us through that very fact-intensive process of, are they the only candidate who is being allowed to do this? Is it a forum where you are saying all of the candidates can come? It's a community forum. They can come and ask any questions that they want. So it's very fact-specific. But if the bigger picture is one candidate is coming in to campaign on public property, we would most likely advise against that. Yes, ma'am. So people the community is still allowed to rent public spaces, right? But what you want to avoid is, number one, if candidate X says, hey, I want to come in and rent this, and you say, sure, come on in. And then candidate Y says, I want to rent it, and you say no, right? Because at that point in time, you're putting your finger on the scale. What the resources that we are talking about and focused on are the people, the equipment, and the time. At that point, when they rent it out and there are no employees who are advocating or doing anything of that nature, the people and parties are allowed to rent public spaces. But again, whenever any of these things come up, these are not last minute issues. Is that right, Director? So we would advise that you call us and get an advisory opinion from us. We have a general counsel. I always tell people she's so smart. She went to Clemson and I hired her anyway. So we have a general counsel who will walk you through this entire process, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Anybody else? Okay. So conflicts of interest, y'all, we talked about things that get people. Sometimes when I do these, I talk about the things that get people in trouble most often. You'll hear, candidate X raised X amount of money, but then they haven't filed all the paperwork that are related to those filings, right? That kind of gets people in trouble a lot. These are the things that get people in the most trouble. These are the things that not only can result in ethics fines, these are the things that can result in termination. These are the things that, quite frankly, have resulted in the past in indictment. So conflicts of interest, when you are using your position as either a public member or your position as a public employee in order to deal in self-dealing or nepotism. And these are actually defined in the Ethics Act. We have two different types of violations that come in here. You have a 700A violation and a 700B violation. A 700A violation means that you are directly involved in self-dealing or nepotism. You are creating an economic interest that is distinct from the general public for you, a family member, a person with whom you are associated, or a business with which you are associated. If you are, let's say the director chooses to go on and do something else. Of course, I hope that's not the case, but let's say she does. And there is a hiring decision that needs to be made about a new executive director. Commissioner Mobley, if your sibling, if you have a sibling, comes in and applies for the position, you can't be involved in that hiring process. Okay. If you come in and you vote to hire sibling X, that is a violation of 700A. Whereas on the other hand, sir, if you have a sibling who applies for the job and I can't vote for it because that's a violation of the Ethics Act. So you call your fellow commissioners before the meeting and say, I can't vote for this, but if you would vote for my sister, I'd appreciate it. Okay, that's a 700B violation. You can't do through the back door what you can't do through the front door. So keep that in mind. If at any point in time you are making a decision involving the people's money, and that decision is something that would benefit you or a family member, a person with whom you're associated, or a business with which you are associated, you are violating the law. And we'll talk about some of these definitions in a little bit more detail on the next slide. But in terms of the general premise of that, does anybody have any questions? So, yes, sir.
What's the statute of limitation on that?
4 years. So everything in the that's for an ethics violation. But let's say that there is some sort of misconduct in office or something of that nature. There is no statute of limitations on that stuff. But for the actual Ethics Act violation, that is a 4-year statute of limitations. Everything in the Ethics Act has a 4-year statute of limitations.
Is that after a public member has left?
The 4 years runs from the moment that the violation occurs. Anyone else? Okay, so family members. Family members are your spouse, parent, brother, sister, mother-in-law, father-in-law, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, grandparent, or grandchild. So this does not mean a cousin, nieces or nephews. They are not included in the definition of family member. These are the people that you cannot give a benefit to. So a good example of this is when I first started, so this would have been probably fall of 2018. I got a call from a county council member, and he said, Megan, I just want to give you a heads up that they're saying I'm about to violate the Ethics Act. I said, well, who's saying that? And he said, everybody. As a general note, if everyone tells you that you are about to violate the Ethics Act, there's a 99% chance that you are about to violate the Ethics Act, right? So I said, well, walk me through it. Tell me what's going on. He said, we need a new county administrator, and I want to vote for somebody, but they say she's my sister-in-law. So I got kind of confused because that's not really a gray area, right? Somebody either is your sister-in-law or they are not your sister-in-law. So I said, well, what's the problem? He said, she's not my sister-in-law. She's my brother-in-law's wife. Said, explain that to me. He said, my wife's brother is married to this woman. Said, okay, she is your sister-in-law. He said, no, she's my brother-in-law's wife. I said, okay. I said, I don't think you should vote. I would advise you that if you vote on that, you're going to violate the Ethics Act. So we hung up, and y'all, I talked to this man over the next 2 weeks leading up to that vote about 2 or 3 times. And the night before the vote, he called me and he said, Megan, I think I think y'all are wrong. I'm going to vote. And I said, well, let's talk about it one more time. I said, Thanksgiving's coming up. Are your kids coming home? He said, yeah. That's my favorite part of Thanksgiving. The whole family's getting together. And I said, and this lady, this candidate, will she be at Thanksgiving? And he said, yeah. And I said, and when your children see her, what will they call her? And he said, Aunt Pam. And I said, that's the problem, right? Aunt Pam is who we can't give these economic benefits to. So make sure at any point in time, if you are making a decision involving government resources and you are thinking, hey, this would be really good for this family member of mine or this business that I'm associated with or yourself, that you're doing the wrong thing. And what we would advise you to do is follow the Ethics Act, which requires for you to recuse yourself. And it requires for you to recuse yourself from that decision-making process in writing. Okay. So if at some point in time, you have a issue that comes up and you realize that it's going to be a family member as defined in the Act or a person with whom you're associated. And that doesn't mean a friend. That means a person with whom you have shared financial interests, right? Or a business with which you're associated. It means a business with which you have shared financial interests. And you can see the definitions here on the screen. A person with whom you're associated is an individual with whom the person or a member of his immediate family mutually has an interest in any business of which the person or member of his immediate family is a director, officer, owner, employee, compensated agent, or a holder of stock worth $100,000 or more at fair market value, and which constitutes 5% or more of the outstanding stock of any class. A business with which you are associated means that you or a member of your immediate family are a director, officer, owner, employee, or compensated agent. So, for example, if you director are looking to outsource some landscaping and companies bid, it can't be a vote by one of these commissioners to give that contract to their own company. Okay. These are the things, y'all, that get people in a lot of trouble. If you have any sort of conflict, you must recuse in writing. So, and I don't know if y'all have a form created or not. Some agencies have a form. You need to, in writing, make, this is, I am Commissioner so-and-so. This is the issue that has arisen. My conflict is X. I am recusing myself from that. Okay. Put it in writing and then make it a part of the meeting minutes. And you have satisfied 813-700 of the Ethics Reform Act. If you do not put it in writing, and let's say you just say, I'm abstaining from the vote. If it's not in writing, you have still violated the Ethics Act. So put it in writing, make it a part of the meeting minutes. They'll give it to you, Mr. Chairman, make it a part of the minutes. At that point in time, I advise, this is not a part of the act, but this is just my advice, that you exit the room when that issue is discussed. Because I will get another phone call and it'll say, Mr. Mobley will call me and say, hey, Megan, Commissioner so-and-so, he recused himself, but when it came time to vote, he coughed 3 times and I knew exactly what that meant, right? I get those phone calls and I'll say, well, did y'all discuss coughing 3 times? No, I just have a feeling. But if you're not in the room, no one can even make that accusation. So my recommendation is that you leave the room. They'll let you back in when that issue is no longer being discussed. But make sure that you are doing everything to not only protect the people that we all serve, but to protect yourselves as we go through this process. Okay. You cannot receive public employees. And I don't know if y'all receive a stipend or not, but public employees, public officials, public members, you cannot receive additional compensation for performing your official duties. So let's say that there's a soccer tournament and there's staff who are helping out, and one of the coaches from one of the teams says, thank you so much for everything you did. Here's $10. You can't accept that. The only money that should be entering your pocket from your public employment should be from the government. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So the custodial crew does a great job cleaning a facility. And person A says, man, this is just over and above. Thanks for doing this for our group. And hands them $20 as a tip. That
is a violation of the Ethics Act. Being a public employee is a lot like working at Publix. There's no tipping. Okay. So you don't accept tips for your public service. Any other questions? Now, I have had people say, I told them no. They left $100 on my desk and walked out. Right. At that point in time, if you know who the person is, get that money back to them. If not, donate it to a charity, but call us and let us know what happened. So in case we start getting complaints or anything of that nature, we have it documented. Yes, ma'am.
Gift cards of appreciation for $25 or less.
So we do have an advisory opinion on this because gift cards have been an issue. There are a couple of distinctions here. This statute that we're talking about right now specifically talks about receiving money. So if the gift card is the equivalent of money, you cannot accept it. So if it is a Visa or American Express gift card for $25, $30, $10, you can't accept it. On the other hand, the statute does not say you cannot accept a gift. So if you do something for somebody in the community and they bake a cake and they bring it up here and they say, thank you so much. Here's my special recipe lemon pound cake. You don't have to kick the lady out, of the commission and tell her to take her cake with her. You can accept that. This is specifically talking about money. If you are accepting a gift from a member of the community for something, make sure it's reasonable. A cake is one thing. A trip to Vegas is another. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? Go ahead. No, this is perfect. It's better for you to ask me questions than it is for me to start asking you questions.
So let's just say Cornelia went over and above, and we as a group decided to give her a gift card for a restaurant or for cash, like American Express. How is that?
You cannot give her cash.
Or excuse me, a gift card
The equivalent of cash. If it's an American Express gift card, you can't do that.
at a restaurant.
A restaurant, I would say that that is outside of the jurisdiction of the Ethics Act and leave that to your director.
Okay.
Okay, because there are statutes about employee appreciation and what governmental entities can do for that. But we don't enforce that part. We enforce the cash and the extravagance of the gift. Right. No, I understand, but there are issues outside of the Ethics Act that might arise because of that. And so that's why I would defer to your executive director on that. Yes, sir. Anybody else? All right. So violations of 740. This is if you appear before your own body. And I don't have a great example of this for recreation commissioners, but let me tell you how this could work in like a school board setting. Let's say you're a member of the school board and your neighbor, little Johnny, is up for expulsion. And you're at the school board meeting and you say, hey, y'all, I'm not going to be here in my official capacity as a member of the school board. I want to step down and speak on little Johnny's behalf because I don't think he should get expelled. Right. It is about advocating on one side or another of an issue before your own body. So make sure that when you are here, you are serving in your role as commissioner and you are not out here advocating for one side or the other. Violations of 750. This comes in when people start hiring, promoting, supervising, or disciplining their own family members. No, at no point in time should you be responsible for the hiring, firing, promotion, or discipline of a family member under any circumstances. That does not mean that family members can't work for the same governmental entity, right? What that means is that if I have a sister and I want to hire my sister, she can work perhaps somewhere in with the Recreation Commission, but she can't work for me and I can't be in charge of that hiring process. I can't be in charge of her termination process. I shouldn't be in charge of any disciplinary proceedings that she may go under, nor should I be in charge of promoting her. Any questions about that?
Yes.
Currently, if I'm not mistaken, Diana, our agency requires for all new employees and board members to sign off on a nepotism policy. Am I correct?
Yes.
And that policy includes the employee's name and position and title. And so I just wanted to make sure that the board members knew that this was definitely like something that it follows right into the ethics, because it's important for us to know, just in case there is something like a grievance and that grievance comes before the board, you would want to know if there was a nepotism issue. So if you have not turned that form in, it is very important that we receive that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions about that, y'all? Okay. So y'all, these are kind of the highlights. You can't receive anything of value with the intention of influencing you in your official capacity. That goes back to the gift question that you asked when it's non-monetary. You can't receive anything of value with the intention of influencing you in your official capacity. So how do you know if that's what's being done, right? It's kind of a holistic look at it. Who's giving it? Are they somebody looking to get some sort of contract from the county that you're involved in? The extravagance of the gift, is it something like a $10 gift card to Chick-fil-A, or is it a flight across the country, right? The timing, purpose, things of that nature. If you have any questions, again, call us and we will walk you through the process as to whether or not you can accept or not that particular gift. A good rule of thumb, though, y'all, is if you're having to explain why something is not a bribe, you are losing. Okay. So make sure that it's not only by the letter of the law, but it's got to pass the smell test. Okay. Accept additional money for assistance given while performing your official duties. That's something that we discussed in terms of not receiving tips. Use confidential information gained through employment for your personal gain. I don't know if there's a lot of confidential information that goes throughout the agency, but make sure that you are not sharing that information with anyone else, especially for your personal gain. You can't represent another person before your body, and you can't accept an honorarium for a speaking engagement. So, for example, I can't get paid to come here and talk to y'all about this. It's my job. So make sure that if you are asked to speak, if there's any sort of conference or anything and you're asked to speak, that you are not getting paid to do so. You can be reimbursed for mileage or real expenses in terms of a hotel room or something of that nature, but you cannot receive money for the speaking engagement. Yes, ma'am.
Follow up. An individual like myself that speaks, in our previous meeting when I came, you shared that if you take leave and you officially say, I'm not representing the agency, that is a clearer way to do something like that.
When you are speaking in your official capacity?
No, just as Parks and Recreation professional.
Right. So if you are not speaking in your official capacity, this doesn't apply, but make sure that you are on leave because you can't be getting paid for two jobs at the same time because you can only do one. Anybody else? Okay. So we talked about recusal and preparing the written statement. So here's what we talked about when I talked about requesting an opinion. Okay. You can request an opinion from our staff and you can say, hey, these are the issues. What are my duties under the Ethics Act? That's basically what the opinion is. And we will give you a written answer to that. Couple of things. One, you can only request an opinion about your own conduct. I can't call and say, hey, I want to know if what he's doing is okay. Right? That is kind of an informal complaint process. The other thing is it must be prospective in nature, means that it cannot have happened already. I had somebody call and they said, hey, Megan, I voted on X, Y, and Z last night. Can you give me an opinion that said it was okay? No, because one, it wasn't. And two, it's already happened. So I can't, you can't give somebody advice on something they've already done. You can only advise them on things that have yet to take place. So make sure that when you're requesting these opinions, that they are prospective in nature and they are about your own conduct. You can ask for them to be confidential, and that way we will not share your name or any identifying information if we were FOIA'd for the opinion. You can ask for an informal opinion, which is an opinion of commission staff. It is that our general counsel writes, and she will provide a written answer that maybe takes a few days. Don't call her on Monday at 4:45 for the 5 o'clock meeting, okay? So it might take a couple of days. The other thing is that we can provide a formal opinion, which is a binding commission staff or binding commission opinion that is prepared by staff, but is voted upon by our commissioners. And then it is binding on everybody under the Ethics Act. So through the course of your public service, let's say someone does file a complaint against you. What happens? The first thing that'll happen is that they will go online to our website at ethics.sc.gov. They will click on how do I file a complaint, download the PDF, fill it out, get it notarized, and send it back in. I sit down with my lead investigator and I say, if this is true, if the allegations in the body of this complaint are true, is it a violation of the Ethics Act? Because there are certain things that people complain about because they say this is unethical. And while, yes, it might be unethical behavior, it may not be a violation of the Ethics Act. So we don't deal with sexual harassment. We don't deal with racial discrimination. I had one lady call me and she was with the clerk of court's office. She said, we got a new clerk of court. And when we make a mistake, she slaps us. Can I file an ethics complaint? So no, you need to call the police, right? That is a violation of the criminal law, right? So that stuff that while abhorrent behavior is not something that we would open an ethics investigation into. And it's confidential, y'all, at this point in time. We'll receive it. If the facts as alleged are true, that would constitute a violation of the Ethics Act, we will then open that investigation. The complainant, meaning the person who filed the complaint, and the respondent, the person against whom the allegations have been made, will both receive copies, and they will be advised that it is confidential in nature. They're not to discuss it. We will neither confirm nor deny the existence of that complaint. The investigators will go through the typical investigative process. They will look for witnesses. They will subpoena documents, and then they will come back to me and present a case file. And if it is likely that the allegations were true, we will recommend to our commissioners that probable cause be found on the complaint. At that point in time, 6 of the 8 commissioners must agree that probable cause is found. So that's one way that we get through that process. The other way is over the course of one investigation, we discover misconduct by other individuals, the commission itself can file a complaint. So those are the ways that we get the ball rolling. But make sure that if you file a complaint or if a complaint is filed against you, you understand that it's confidential unless and until probable cause is found. If 6 of those 8 commissioners agree that it's more likely than not that you violated the Ethics Act, then that information becomes public. The complaint itself becomes public. Any written response by the accused becomes public, as well as the notice of hearing. At that point in time, we proceed to either a formal hearing, which is like a mini trial. 3 of our 8 commissioners are chosen at random. The commission is represented by our general counsel. The accused is represented by his or her attorney, should they choose to hire one, or they can represent themselves. And, witnesses are called, exhibits are introduced, and then our commissioners will deliberate and render a decision in order. The best thing to do, though, is to avoid this entirely. And so if you have any questions, the one thing that I want you to leave here feeling comfortable doing is calling me. And I'll be more than happy to walk you through any of this and answer any questions that you may have. I usually give my cell phone number out, but we are live streaming, right? So not do that. But Miss, you have my cell phone number. If any of your commissioners need it or if any of your staff need it, y'all please call me. Allow me to assist you. It is my job to serve you while you serve the public, right? So if there's anything that I can do, please don't hesitate to give me a call. And thank you for everything you do for the people of Richland County. I appreciate it. That's all.
Let me ask you another question.
Yes, sir.
I know we don't have to deal with this at the commission because we are not elected officials, but when I was
No, wait, okay. No, I didn't do a good job then. You are a public member.
Yeah.
So as a public member, you are under the jurisdiction of the Ethics Act and you have to deal with the Ethics Commission.
Mm-hmm. But we don't have to have quarterly reports.
No, you don't have to do any filings.
Right.
But remember, all those other rules that we just discussed that apply to public officials apply to you as well.
Mm-hmm. What I was trying to tell you is, when I got fined, when I ran for county council, I got fined for being a day late on my quarterly report.
Mm-hmm.
So I complained about it, but they never did nothing about it. For a while. The other guy was there before you. I forgot his name, but he told me he was a judge and jury. That's the reason why I didn't pay it. So after a while, when the last election I did, you was there, and you convinced me to pay. I wasn't gonna pay it if it wasn't for you.
Well, I'm glad you paid.
Me that I needed to pay it.
No,
I depended on your employee to make sure that my report was filed, because at that time I didn't know nothing about how to file that report. So we did it on the phone.
Yes, sir. And so one of the things to remember, though, is that your ethics duties are yours and yours alone. That we will assist you through it. We'll walk you through it. And I'll be happy to talk to anybody about any ethics issue that ever arises. And I'm available at any time. But remember that the duty to follow the Ethics Act is on the individual. So make sure that you're following those laws. And thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, they dragged me through the mud, my name through the mud for 2 years.
Thank you.
One question I made, the statement of economic interest.
They are not required filers.
No,
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm required to file as well as the CFO.
Right.
Us too.
All
Thank
right,
you
y'all.
again,
Thank you. If
Ms.
there's anything I
Walker.
can do, y'all just give me a call.
Yes. And again, we appreciate all the work that you do on behalf of the citizens of Richland County. Thank you. Mr. Chair, you now have the minutes for your next action item.
Okay, I'll request the board to approve the minutes from July 19th, 2021. And the regular board meeting on September 13th, 2021 and October 4th, 2021. Special call board meeting, and we get an action to make it correct.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes from the special board for July 19th, 2021, September 13th, 2021, and October 4th, 2021.
A second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner McKee,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindsey,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Present.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yay for September 13th and October 4th and nay for July 19th.
So you're saying nay for all three,
No,
just for
I'm saying
two?
nay for July 19th, but I wasn't here.
Just one motion.
Well, I wasn't here July 19th, so nay.
You can note for the record that you wouldn't vote on minutes.
Yeah, I don't
here.
know. This one.
Commissioner Singleton, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So the vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was no public input for today's meeting.
Okay. All right, so there'll be a financial report from Mr. Zana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ryan Zana, our CFO, Chief Financial Officer, will be providing you with the statement of revenue and expenditures that is included in your package, as well as the Linrick Enterprise Fund Golf Course. And finally, the Linrick Enterprise Fund proposed 2021-22 budget. Later on in the agenda, you will see where there is the request for a public hearing for that supplemental budget. Our parliamentarian will give you a little bit more insight about the way we're doing that this year to ensure that this budget is passed. Ryan?
Thank you very much. Good evening to Chair Lapine and members of the Commission Board. I'd like to begin tonight providing you with an update on the General and Enterprise Fund financials for the period July 1 through September 30, 2021. For the general fund revenues, total revenues for the 3-month period was $1.18 million compared to $1 million around this time last year. Represents approximately $180,000 increase in revenues, or approximately an 18% increase. The largest driver for that increase was increased program revenue. The categories with the greatest increase were parks and rental revenue. There was a $71,000 increase. Recreational youth camp revenue, there was a $65,000 increase. And athletic and recreational revenues, there was a $42,000 increase. Those increases were largely related to COVID-related decreases in program revenue for early fiscal year 21.
Right.
Yes.
Good question. I'm just trying to follow what you just said from the sheets.
Sure.
So the very first sheet, it says statement of revenues and expenditures for 3 months ending September 30th. Is that what you just went over?
Yes, it was. Administrative revenue and program revenue are broken out on your summary. The program revenue, those categories that I just went through, they are summarized in that program revenue line.
Okay, so because I heard you say 1.1 million or something like that. I think then in case I got to-
You saw 92.
Well, I thought I heard you say that
Total,
it was $1 million.
yeah, total revenues for the 3-month period was 1.18 million.
Okay, so here though, for you actually shows $1 million to a fund. But and I'm just trying to figure out what I'm looking at. I'm not. Does that make sense? My question?
As you're looking at the statement of revenues for the 3 months ended September 30th,
Yeah.
you are under general fund fiscal year 2021 to 2022
Yeah.
budget, and you're looking at the 1.281.
I'm not sure 1.205 or 1.205.
Revenue.
You are correct. Chair Lapine, you are correct.
Okay.
It's 1.2.
Okay. So
Yep.
then the And then the program revenues, the budget for $1,200,000 for the 3 months over 210. That's correct? That's for the whole year.
That's for the whole year.
Yeah,
Yep.
so the first 3 months were 210.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the budget amount for the general fund, that represents the full year
We
budget.
were up over 180,000 compared to the year. All right.
Correct. Correct.
I'm on track.
Okay. I apologize for that.
No, not.
Moving on to the expenditures. Total general fund expenditures for this 3-month period were $3.36 million compared to $3.19 million around this time last year. Represents approximately 5.4% increase from this time last year, or $170,000. The biggest driver for that increase in expenditures would be capital improvement expenditures, followed by an increase in programming expenditures. And again, those increase in program expenditures were related to a COVID decrease that we experienced at the beginning of last fiscal year. Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to know what are the program expenses? I'd like to see a breakdown of the program expenses and also the capital improvement expenses.
And we will provide that information with you following the meeting.
Sure. We can provide that detail.
And that was for the capital improvement, and you said the program expenses.
Right. Those were the highest expenses.
And as shared, the CIP, when we talk about a capital improvement program, and that increase is a part of what you will be seeing again tonight, the roofing. There are about 3 other projects that will be coming to you later on that will show you where that increase is. So I know that we are looking at some replacements for the HVAC system as well as the roofing, and those are definitely large amounts that we had to pay.
Yeah, in terms of what we've already incurred as well, Polo and Friars Gate were 2 projects that were driving some of that increase. For moving on to, unless there are any other questions?
How about the information technology? I'd like to see the breakdown on that also.
Sure, we can provide that information. For the enterprise fund actuals, revenues for the current period were $269,000 compared to $263,000 this time last year. Represents an increase of approximately $6,000 or 2.3%. Food and beverage and merchandise sales were largely driving those increases. And for expenditures, or total enterprise fund expenditures for this period were $271,000 compared to $227,000 around this time last year. Represents approximately a 19% increase or a $43.3 thousand increase. Depreciation expense for purchased golf carts and capital outlay expenditures were 2 of the largest drivers for that increase in expenditures. Were there any questions? We're going.
I do have I have a just general information question that I've got.
Sure.
When you're doing your balance or your income statements, that depreciation, you can write that off though, right? Against your income, just like we can do on our.
Yeah, it'll that is an expenditure if.
Because what I'm saying, since we've done pretty well out at Linrick, and so we'll get to use that to write that off against the income, right?
Correct.
Which, okay.
Yes.
I'd like also a breakdown to show the capital outlay expenses,
Okay.
the non-operational expenses, and the depreciation expenses.
That's the golf carts. That's just your golf cart. number of the depreciation?
We, I can provide you with a depreciation schedule.
Thank you.
Yep.
And that concludes that presentation of the fund balances, Mr. Chair, and that'll lead us into that next one. Unless there are any more additional questions, we will prepare the information that was requested by Commissioner Lindsay and provide a report to the entire board.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan. Yeah, appreciate it. Okay, so we're on to unfinished business. And the first topic is something that we discussed last week, which is the remote work from home. And I guess potentially we'll have some action on it.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, the Linrick Enterprise Fund, the proposed budget, the third bullet.
My bad.
No problem at all. If we can pull that presentation up for that Linrick budget.
Yes, ma'am. All right.
Thank you. I do have here with me that will be assisting with the presentation if needed, Mr. Matt Christman, who is the recreation superintendent that oversees the Linrick Golf Course, as well as athletics, aquatics, health, and wellness. Then we, of course, have our CFO. The purpose of this presentation is to familiarize the entire board with what Linrick Golf Course is, the fact that it is a separate account that we utilize, and just to give you an overall of what your golf course operations look like. So Matt will be at the podium and he'll go through a few slides just to give you an overview of the golf course for those of you that have not been out to the golf course. And then we will end with Ryan sharing the budget with you. And later on in the agenda, we will be requesting for the public hearing to be held for this budget. Matthew?
Thank you, Lakita, and good evening, Chair Lapine and commissioners. I'm going to go over the overview, what the acreage is out at Linrick, along with what our amenities are. And then I'll go over the organizational chart for Linrick as well. And then I have a presentation or slides on the staff that's out there because some of you are new. So just to put a face with the name that's out there. So I will get started. So out at Linrick, the golf course sits on 257 acres. There are 18 holes. The first 9 holes were completed in 1970, where the second 9 holes were done in 1971. So we are coming up on the 50th anniversary of Linrick Golf Course. And then we purchased new golf carts back in 2020. And then we also got a ThorGuard lightning detection system. That's something that was part of the capital outlay as well. We didn't have that technology out there, so we implemented that going forward. And then out at the pro shop, we sell snacks, hot dogs, merchandise, buy shirts, flags, that kind of stuff, and tees and balls. So here's the organizational chart. It starts with our executive director at the top, and it goes all the way through our card attendants. And I will show you our manager, general manager, and that kind of stuff.
Chair Lapine, you have a hand raised for a question.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Mother?
Okay, I see in the organizational chart, you have one assistant. No, you got 2 assistant pro managers.
Yes.
Why you got 2?
For staffing purposes, we have 2 out there. And then Ronnie Jones is our manager. And then our general manager is John Rutherford. So the org chart is, I call him the general manager, but he's the director of golf operations. It's the same title as John Rutherford. So I can go through the names. This just has their titles.
Well, why you got a health and wellness coordinator?
Hold on. The health and wellness coordinator does not participate at the golf course. This is a snapshot of the organizational chart that shows the entire line by which the individuals that report to him. The next slide clearly shows all the people that work at the golf course. And the reason that we do have two, the golf course is open 7 days a week, am I correct?
Correct.
What was the reason for the two? I didn't hear.
We're open 7 days a week and one individual can't work 80 hours. So those individuals are full-time and they split that schedule to ensure coverage. Matthew, you can introduce the staff.
So here's our staff. James Stout is our assistant pro shop manager. Kimberly Case is the assistant pro shop manager. Ronald Jones is the pro shop manager. And then Ryan Wilson is one of our grounds equipment operators. Charles Stevens is the golf course mechanic. And I'm going left to right in the last picture. And then Charles Lyles is the maintenance manager. And then John Rutherford is our director of golf operations out there. So for a golf course that operates 7 days a week, we have 4 maintenance because with John Rutherford being the director of golf, he does some of our programs out there. He also does he's basically like our golf course superintendent. So he's on the grounds, he sprays the weeds, does all that as well. And then the other 3 help him out to operate and maintain cutting the grass, making sure the bunkers are good, along with the greens and that kind of information as well. And then here are some of the programs and events that we offered at Linrick during 2020 and 2021. So we started doing junior, family, adult, and women's golf lessons. We have a contract with George Bryan, who does our golf lessons out there. And then we offered that in the spring and fall. And then we tried to do a summer youth golf clinic out there as well. And that was run through George as well. And then some of the special events and tournaments that we have done out there is the Shamrock 5K. And then coming up in November next month, we're going to do the Turkey Trot 5K out there. Last year and this year, we're hosting the South Carolina Parks and Rec Association, their golf fundraiser, their golf outing. And it's their only fundraiser that they do for that organization. And then we had the Sean Lanier Memorial, the JKC tournament, the Jamal Shivers tournament, and then Die into play. And then Irmo Chapin, they come out and use our facility as well. And then we also hosted the SCISA high school regional tournament in 2020.
Thank you, Matthew. Now to get specifically into the budget, we felt that it was important, as you have shared with us, to take the time to educate and provide information regarding the various operations. So we wanted to share with you the differences between our accounts, the fund, the enterprise fund, which we'll be discussing, and then the general fund. So Ryan?
Sure. Thank you. So the RCRC uses a fund accounting system in order to group accounts related to specific activities or objectives. The RCRC's general fund is used to account for governmental activities and functions. The focus of the governmental funds is on near-term inflows and outflows of spendable resources, as well as the balance of spendable resources available at the end of the fiscal year. General fund resources are derived from property tax revenue, charitable donations, grant revenue, bond proceeds, as well as other sources of revenue, such as concession sales. Conversely, proprietary or enterprise funds are used to account for business type activities for RCRC's Linrick Golf Course. Resources are derived from green and range fees, cart rentals, food and beverage sales, as well as pro shop rentals and merchandise sales.
So Ryan, does that mean that all the revenues that come in through those things you listed is how that the expenses are paid for?
Yeah, so those are the sources of revenue for those specific funds. Yep. Moving on to slide 2. In developing the proposed budget for Linrick, RCRC considered historical sales data in order to project sales volume and revenue for fiscal year 22. On the current slide, we've presented fiscal year 20 and 21 sales data compared to the projected sales volume for fiscal year 22. As you can see, the projected fiscal year 22 figures are in line with fiscal year 21 actuals. And I also want to note that in November 2020, Linrick increased green fees by $1 per round. That's for both 9 and 18 round fees. So moving on to the next slide, this slide illustrates the revenue trends over the past 2 fiscal years compared to projections for fiscal year 22. Projected revenue for fiscal year 22 is $57.5 thousand for administrative revenue, $10,000 for program revenue, and $1.25 million for enterprise revenue. The projected enterprise revenue incorporates the sales volume data that was on the previous slide and the fee increases covered on the previous slide. Mr. Mobley.
Go ahead. Mr. Muller.
Explain this program revenue.
Sure. The program revenue, that is going to be revenue that's derived from various programs that are offered at Linrick. Matt, do you
that list that was on that previous slide,
like
all
golf,
of those classes,
golf camp?
There, exactly.
the tournaments?
Could you provide some specific examples, Matt?
So it's the golf course, it's the family golf, junior golf. Those are the programs. The tournaments go into a separate for greens fees and that kind of stuff. So that gets captured. The tournaments get captured under the greens fees because they could have 150 players out there playing. So that gets separated out into the greens fees. The program budget or the program revenue is strictly through the golf camps and clinics that we offer out there.
And I'd like to just make a comment to the other commissioners that with COVID, we had a unprecedented increase in our revenues during that time. So I was pretty excited to see that we're keeping pace with what we've done, so that I would assume it means that we're probably getting the same amount of rounds in for the most part, you know?
So that leads me to the final slide, which presents the proposed enterprise fund budget for fiscal year 22. Total revenues were $1.32 million. Expense projections were based on historical spending levels and incorporated planned initiatives and capital projects, such as the Linrick anniversary event and improvements to bunkers and sand traps.
So what you have before you, we are not requesting a vote on this budget this evening. We are requesting the ability to establish a public hearing for the public to have comments on the enterprise fund budget, but that is a separate motion, Mr. Chair, later on in the agenda.
Okay, and then I know that we pushed, we put a new building into that fund.
Yes,
So
sir.
was revenue in there?
Revenue for the rentals of
I
the
assume that that's
facility.
what some of that number, those numbers
Yes.
were too.
You're exactly right. We did a resolution last year to put the Upper Richland facility under the enterprise fund as a way to increase revenues, also to have a more efficient use of the building since of its location.
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody's been out there, but it's a really nice building.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you very much.
Are there any additional questions about what's presented? And you do still have time. That public meeting would happen over the next month prior to the meeting that you would have your regular board meeting that third Monday. Mr. Chair, you have a handout.
Chair.
Yes, please.
The, my mic is in. There we go. Move a little closer. The proposed meeting for the public meeting for the budget, would that happen out at the golf course or would that happen
It would
here?
happen here in front of you at your meeting.
Thank you.
And that concludes their presentation. Thank you, Ryan. And I would like to say the employees out at the golf course, if you are watching, we truly appreciate all of the hard work. You were definitely our flagship when we could not open anything else. The golf course was open, and we truly appreciate all of the work that Matthew and the team E does out there. Mr. Chair, your next agenda item is the follow-up unfinished business.
Great. All right, so this will be policy for 168, remote work from home. So I think there's an attachment in here and potentially we will have action on that.
Yes, sir. We do have our Director of Human Resources, Mrs. Diana McCoy, that will give a brief presentation based off of some of the questions that she had received. We stand ready to answer any additional questions and just wait for the board's vote.
Good evening, Chair Lapine and members of the board. So tonight I'd like to provide you with additional information regarding the remote work from home policy. So how did we get here? Last year, the world was basically turned upside down, and South Carolina was turned upside down in the process as well. Stay-at-home orders were issued, and because of that, within a matter of 2 days, we had to move all of our work to our home offices, basically. This policy is not an indefinite policy, meaning I'm not expecting any employees to stay at home for months at a time. This is more of just a flexibility for them, for our leadership team to be able to work remotely if they ask to. And again, as I stated before, this is not a policy for everyone. This is going to be primarily focused on our leadership team at this time. Okay, so according to CNBC, 22% of senior level positions have now gone remote. What this means, we have VPs, general managers, department heads, and directors that are now capable of working from home. Our leadership team, again, we proved it. We had our laptops, cell phones, VPN access, and the majority of our meetings are already via Zoom. Safety is our number one priority. And what we found is on Fridays, we have a deep clean in the main office. About 32 individuals have had some type of COVID incident. And so we're trying to make sure everybody stays safe, not just in the main office, but at our other facilities as well. And to put that in perspective, we've had 32 people go out for COVID incidents, and we only have about 40 offices right now that are filled in the main building. And lastly, this is our opportunity to grow. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term, the Great Resignation. Last year, a lot of employees became comfortable. They loved staying at home. And when it was time to return to the office, they didn't feel safe. But I would say Ms. Watson did a great job for our team because she gradually had everyone integrate back to the office. So it wasn't a big shocker for anyone, not for the leadership team or our other employees that were at their facilities that ultimately were not even working from home, but were sitting home waiting for the buildings to reopen. Even integrating them back into the fold of everything worked perfectly for us. And when I'm going on Indeed and I'm posting jobs, there are a lot of remote work opportunities available for everyone in the world right now. So I just kind of want to be a little bit more competitive with my positions that I'm posting to at least be able to say, hey, we offer a flexible work schedule for our leadership positions that I'm recruiting for right now. And finally, I'll say that working from home actually boosts productivity. When I was working from home, and I know Ms. Watson can attest to this as well, but I was taking calls from part-timers at 11 p.m. and at night, and I was answering. So clearly it was okay. And they understood that, but I wanted to make sure that if they needed anything from me, that I was there to help them out. So at the end of the day, when my employees contact any one of us, they don't know whether I'm doing it from a conference room down the hall, if I'm doing it from my desk, because all of them have my work cell phone numbers. And I'm pretty sure that the rest of the leadership team operates the same way with having their cell phones readily available for everyone to call them. And that's it from me, Chair Lapine. I'll let you go ahead and direct everyone's steps, please. Next steps.
Okay. So what am I doing here?
We're just, are there any additional questions? And then if there's a motion, but usually the motion occurs first, and,
we'll have
or
discussion.
then we'll have discussion, but it is totally up to the way the board wants to receive the information and move forward. We're just here to provide you with any input that you need to make your decision.
All right, so we don't need a motion. Sorry, Mayor Bob, we don't need a motion.
I would go ahead and get a motion and then.
A motion though to approve it
To approval or to
a motion to
disapprove it.
discuss.
Well, you certainly could discuss, and sometimes you don't want to have people thinking you're about to vote on it. So why don't you discuss it and then have a motion?
That's what I think would be appropriate. Yeah. All right. So it's all right to just say open for discussion.
Right. Normally,
I know
you have a motion.
Correct.
Discuss the motion. I'm sensing you want to discuss it. So why don't you discuss it and then have a
Yeah. Okay. Because I could ask for a motion to approve
or
deny and open for discussion. Okay, let's just open up for discussion. I think Commissioner Lindsay's probably got questions or comments here.
I have a couple of questions. You say your office is closed now every Friday, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay, so when the office is closed, are you working from home at that time?
Ultimately, the leadership team is, ma'am, we don't shut down. We're
As
salaried employees.
So yes, ma'am, I still do Zooms. I still schedule meetings along with the rest of my team on Fridays, including finance.
Okay, I'm not trying to be negative, but I believe that the citizens of Richland County deserve the leadership employees to be in the office in case there's an emergency and they need to contact someone. And I don't think they'd be contacting your people at home if they're working remotely. We have nice offices over there on Park Lane, and I see no reason for the leadership members not to stay in their office and work unless they're sick. And that's my opinion.
Well, that again goes to the flexibility of how we want this policy to work. We've had a lot of COVID incidents. The reason we were having the meeting 2 weeks ago was because I had just sent my whole leadership team home. So this would give us the flexibility to, if there was a situation that arose and I needed to send my leadership team home, they could work from home, especially during COVID. We're trying to maintain a safe environment. So I'm sending letters and telling people that they have to go home and they have to use sick leave. Whereas I would at least be able to have them work and handle business from home.
If they have COVID, aren't they quarantined for a certain amount of time?
Well, it depends. Some people can, contact COVID. I'm not the CDC, just to say that. But some people can have COVID and not have any symptoms. There are people that are actually sick. And those employees, I'm like, please, whatever you're doing, please don't pick up your phone as far as the leadership team goes, because outside of that, they're just using their sick leave. But, and I'm talking about before we fully came back into the office. And then there are individuals that have to just go home to quarantine because they're not vaccinated. They have a longer stay out for quarantine.
So just to clarify, let me just ask clarification, you might have a comment. So if I come in contact, I've been vaccinated, then we have a policy that you have to go home and quarantine for
3 days.
How many?
3 days.
If you're vaccinated.
If you're vaccinated.
And actually you get tested on that third day from contact with that individual.
And so my question is, right, or if you're unvaccinated, it's 14 days or whatever, 10 or 14. So my question is this. I'm a part of the leader, as the state's leadership team. I'm part of the leadership team.
Yes.
Or an employee leadership team or just leadership team?
It's the leadership team. Anybody right now who's reporting to Ms. Watson or Ms. Tamika.
Okay. So then if somebody's reporting to you and they've been, they've had some sort of exposure, then if they've just had exposure, but they're not sick, then they have the ability under this to work from home.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was one question I had. There was another question here on 2A where it says whether an eligible, second sentence, whether an eligible employee will be granted the opportunity to work remotely will be determined on a case-by-case basis at the commission's discretion. Is that on an individual employee or is that for a classification of an employees' classification of what they do.
It'll be based off of the employee's classification and what
Yeah,
they
'cause we're not
do.
gonna get in the day-to-day.
No, sir.
Right, all right, I just,
And I would like to share that you currently have a limited work from home policy that is still in effect as a part of the emergency policy that you passed last year. So we still have that ability through that policy and we are still exercising. My goal was to go when we're done with the pandemic to follow suit with what Ms. McCoy was saying to offer that opportunity. However, just for clarification, we still have the ability based off of our current pandemic status. And that has been going on now for about a year and a half. And I've been very responsive as well as all of my team. And we definitely have respect and received information from the citizens as requested. But again, sir, this is definitely for you all.
thank you. Any other question?
Yes, sir.
That one now.
So, Commissioner
More of a
Anderson?
question statement, however you want to call it. Okay. You're requesting to work from home. Okay, now, how many people are actually employed in the building?
In the building, we have about 40 officers that are filled right now.
Yeah, 40 officers that are filled. And how many COVID cases have y'all had in there?
We've had 34 COVID incidents.
In that office alone?
Yes, sir.
I didn't hear about that.
So,
This has been over the last year and a half,
Yeah.
sir. You
Okay,
wouldn't
I
have-
mean, I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be a part of what you're talking about still. I mean, I know
Yeah.
you're saying that you had the cases, but that's still a part of what you're asking.
Yeah.
We're a new board.
Yeah.
We're not the old board. You got to keep that in mind.
Right.
Okay. And I'm also looking at some of the lower levels
Mm-hmm.
that they come in contact with a lot of people coming
Yes,
through
sir.
their doors
Yes, sir.
constantly. I've worked out of several gyms. I've gone out there. They're also in jeopardy with the COVID because of the different things that they have to do, because they have parties going on. They have people coming to play basketball in the gym. There's a constant influx of people coming in that gym as well. But I don't see the break that they get. I understand what you're going to say because they're on the front line. They're on the front line and their position is totally different than yours. And that's totally understandable. But at the same time, they're in just as much of a threat for COVID as you are. That's my point. They're in the front line every single day. People coming in, kids are the carriers. We know the kids are the carriers because my daughter had it and she had no symptoms. There was 13 of us in my family that caught COVID-19. 13. And it's a blessing that none of us really had any symptoms. I had no symptoms whatsoever. And if I hadn't just got tested, I would have never known simply what you guys are talking about. So we have to look at the totality. The totality. What's the effect? Like Commissioner Lindsay said, you have something in place to combat the COVID-19. So my question is, you said there's constant cleaning or spraying. You say that's a constant thing, correct?
On
Every day?
Fridays, yes, sir, we shut down and there's a cleaning and then staff at all the facilities use our sprayers and our cleanings. However, we can't control when individuals leave the building and get exposed by their families and then return. We have not found the exposure to come from our event or activity. It usually comes from home.
That's a lot to think about. That's a lot to think about.
Commissioner Anderson. Yes. So, are you going down a road of how do we protect or how do we give better benefit to the people on the front line? I'm just trying to understand.
I mean, it's a totality. It's not just focused on, it's a totality of everybody. It's all pieces that are being affected by COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just one party, just not leadership on this side and then the lower level part-time, full-time on that side. We need our people engaged. Leaders lead by example. That's what leaders do. And if you're gonna lead, you got to be in a leadership position. And if you're gonna lead, you got to be in the office. That's just that's just the way I view things.
Okay, so just,
It's on the board, whatever motions or no motions or a motion to table to the next meeting. It is totally your decision on how the motion goes.
all right, well, I'll bring it up if whatever the board decides is fine with me, but yeah, no, we have to take action to make a motion to accept policy 168, remote work from home. So we'd have a motion to accept that policy.
And then you can vote against it, of
You can vote
course.
against it or whatever you want to do, or table it, whatever you feel like. So can I get a motion to accept policy 168, remote work from home?
I make a motion to vote on accepting or rejecting policy number
168.
168.
Hold on, excuse me. I think the parliamentarian, did
You
you?
can just have it, vote to accept and then you vote against it. That would
That's
be-
right. I'd say just accept.
If you're against it, I would do it like that. Vote against.
Go ahead and make your policy. Can you make your motion again, please?
I make a motion to vote.
I say a motion to accept the policy
And then you vote against it.
and if you were against the policy, vote against it.
Okay. I make a motion to accept policy number 168.
I'll second.
Okay,
Commissioner Anderson,
I guess.
Yay or nay?
Nay, nay.
Commissioner King,
yes.
Commissioner Lindsey,
No.
Commissioner Miller,
I vote to accept the policy.
Commissioner Martin,
No.
Commissioner Singleton.
No.
So the motion failed with a 4-6,
42.
42, I'm sorry,
Yes.
vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
The next item is a follow-up item from last month's meeting as well. We have before you our procurement manager, Ms. Cicely Shaw, and she will give you an overview of the information that you have been provided. In your packet, there were several things that you have requested. If you go beyond the policy, you'll see the information for roofing. You'll have the multiple Richland County locations, as well as the statement of the award, the record of the bidding, the bid document, and the policy that was approved by this board on last year. Ms. Shaw?
Good evening, Chair Lapine and board members. So on this slide, I know it's a little busy, but these are the two ways that we solicit out for contracts for any purchases over $25,000. So the first one is for invitation for bid. Invitation for bid, that's the lowest price. We take the lowest price, and usually those things are for like commercial items, golf carts, shirts, basketballs, gym equipment, and so on. The other process is called a request for proposal. That is solicited out and we get the bids. That doesn't mean the lowest price. We actually have a grading panel who grades those bids. And then we score the bids accurately. These systems are for like your construction, your security systems, field renovations, and so on. Also, examples of some of the grading criteria, we go by the firm's experience, their understanding of the requirements, references, and their preferences. So we do preferences for veteran-owned, women-owned, minority-owned, and Richland County local vendors. We also go by complaints and the length of time that they can actually get the project done. So you have before you the contract for the roofing, RFP 0011-2021. And that is for roofing on Meadow Lake Park, Friars Gate Park, and Kaufman Road Park, a total of $368,000. We did a request for proposal for this item simply because it is a construction project. It was advertised.
Excuse me, Commissioner Moblin?
Explain to me grader 1, grader 2, grader 3.
Those are the individuals.
Those are the individuals. We don't, since my records, all procurement records are FOIA. Therefore, I do not put the names of the graders actually on their grading sheets. They're anonymous graders. So the solicitation was actually advertised on SCIBO, which is the South Carolina Business Opportunities. That's the same website that the state procurement uses to solicit their contracts. We also solicit our contracts on the RCRC website underneath the purchasing tab. All the solicitations and the dates and all the information is on there. That was done on the 22nd of June. They had until 7 July to submit any questions to me about the solicitation. Once I receive their questions, I do reply back to all that have sent in questions. We do amendment to the solicitation. The bids were due on the 21st of July. So the solicitation was actually advertised for 43 days. Between July 21st and the 30 August, the RCRC employees did their grading. That was their grading period. And we had several meetings to discuss those. The intent of award, which is, it was posted on 31 August. This allows us to start the 10-day protest period. We did the intent of award and we posted it on the RCRC website and we received no protest for this contract. Therefore, we bring the contract to the board after that process is done. 10 bids were received. However, one was not able to be responsive since they did not submit a performance bond. A performance bond actually secures the contract and makes sure that we get the project done. There was also a pre-bid meeting on 7 July for all vendors to be able to come out and ask questions about any of the roofing. All contracts over $100,000 threshold need to be.
Sorry to interrupt, Commissioner Moblin.
Were you on the phone last meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you were the one say y'all had 4 bids?
Right, I stand corrected. It was 10 bids. I had it confused with another solicitation I was working that day. Yes. All contracts over $100,000 threshold do have to go before the commission board for approval, along with the executive directors. The bidding range for this contract, the lowest bid price was $287,700. The highest bid price was $451,900. I know Commissioner Miller asked last meeting about the squares. Each building has 183 total squares for each building. This contract also includes a 20-year, no dollar amount warranty.
And she stands for any questions.
I've got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So you're saying it's a 20-year, no dollar amount warranty?
Yes, sir.
That means if there's a leak, they come fix it?
Yes, sir.
20 years?
Yes, sir. We made sure that was in the solicitation.
And then I guess the next question I'd have is, so who ultimately are we trying to approve here? The one that got the most points?
ATD,
The one, ATD Restoration LLC.
ATG?
Yes, sir.
yes. That procurement was validly conducted in accordance with the procurement code. There are no substantial grounds. We do have for us to not accept it, and we have this approved in the budget that you approved that went to the county earlier this year. So this is an approved budget item.
Correct. Okay. And so, like, I've never seen this before, but I like it. But so the grader 1, grader 2, grader 3 on ATD gave them 2019-22, right?
Right.
And then, and the graders are just people that are who?
Employees.
They're usually employees that specialize in that section. So
Got you.
for instance, if it was a roofing, that would ultimately come from facilities management. If it's about the golf course, of course, it'd be Matt and his team. I do get the subject matter experts
Gotcha.
to grade those.
It's nice.
And we do have Tiana Henley. She's here with us this evening. She's the assistant superintendent over the property management. If there were any specific questions about the state of those roofs, she shared with me as she watched the last meeting that, you know, if sometimes when it rains, we have a roof that we actually have to bring buckets in. As I shared with you all previously, what we're doing, we're playing catch up for maintenance and things that had not been done over a number of years. And we were able to get those funds allocated. And so we're ready to move forward with making sure that our citizens and our staff are in safe, clean spaces. And when you have roof leaks, that impacts our programming as well as our organization.
Any question? Okay. Commissioner Lindsay?
Where you listed your 10 roofers, I noticed you didn't put the addresses. I would have liked to see where all these roofers reside or where the company is located. Because the one that you're promoting tonight is from Greenville, South Carolina.
Right. We had no Richland County solicitations submitted.
I'd like to ask a question about that. And maybe.
I have comments from our contract attorney, Mr.
Well, I was going to say,
Lawrence,
because when it comes to like trying to say, hey, we should take somebody, because you'd mentioned this last week, Don Zetta.
Mm-hmm.
If you said we should take somebody from this area or that area, I think that puts us possibly in a tough situation. And I don't know if that's a correct statement or not.
You
So
can
I have a
establish the
list of the-
criteria. I'm sorry.
I have a list of the areas if you would like to hear them for all, not with the actual company, but so we have one bid from Greenville, one bid from Lexington, one bid from Sumter, one from West Columbia, one from Sumter, one from Georgia, one from North Carolina, one from Sumter, one from North Carolina, and one from Spartanburg that was no responsive because of no bond.
And the roofing procurement expressly included the authorization for preferential status to minority, woman-owned, and veteran businesses. And each of these criteria were factored in to the bid evaluation. If local status is additionally preferred, such an authorization should be included in the initial bid specifications as a means of promoting and prioritizing local vendors. So currently, that is not something that was expressed within that. So it would have to be expressed in the beginning of that bid document.
Okay. Good clarification. Okay.
I have just a question about moving forward for next bids. If that is something that the commission would like for us to consider, minority-owned local businesses, at what point do we need to make sure that is included before that RFP goes out? Where in the process? I'm unfamiliar with that.
I can put that in the solicitation. However, understand that that's a preference. They do get a percentage off, not that they overall win just because they're from Richland County.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand.
I had just sent out a solicitation last week, and I did include that local vendor preference in there to specify that, along with the veteran-owned, women-owned.
Chair, I have one more question. When I noticed the agencies that you listed where the bids were marketed, where they were, or the job was shared, are there any other places in which notifications of job opportunities do we think we can place them in other publications, in your professional opinion?
Yes, ma'am. We can obviously I put a lot of stuff also in the main office. In the walk-in area, there's the little things to put paper in. We can put them in there. I went around and I've talked to vendors since I started here, get them on our website. We actually have a form on the website for vendor registration. So they can fill out that form, email it to me, and I have a database of all those vendors. So when a bid in their specialty comes up, I can directly email those bids to those people. And I've encouraged that, and we need to continue to encourage that as we move forward.
So there's a protocol if a local, say, for example, roofing company, who we didn't hear from, sounds like it.
Right.
Well, we heard Lexington, I take that back. But Richland County, they could register with you using that form.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
if another roofing opportunity becomes available, then they would be in your database.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's on the RCRC website under the purchasing tab.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you consider doing maybe one at a time instead of all three at the same time with the same company? Was it possible where you could split it up and give different companies?
Normally, if you do it all together, it brings the cost down because the company's already traveling here or here in the area. And when they order material in bulk. If they order material in bulk, especially now because of COVID, it brings down the price a little bit.
Well, I know several roofers in the Columbia area, and I guess they're not familiar with your bidding and your advertising. And I would like to some kind of process where we can, I'm a board member, and if I had known you were going to have this large contract for 3 roofers,
That'd be bad.
I could have
That'd be
some
bad for you to
people
do that.
what?
I said, I don't think that'd be good.
And like I said, all solicitations are on the RCRC website. They can actually click on the solicitation and it will automatically pull up the solicitation form for them to read.
And if you would like for me to include the bids into my executive director's report that I submit, I have no problem sharing with you a list of that we have this going on if you feel that would be assistance to you.
I didn't finish my question, but I would like for you to notify us when you're going to have large contracts like that, because I know we all know several people in the community would be interested in your bidding process and actually doing your work for you. But if we just saw this the second time we saw this. I mean, I had no idea you were even soliciting 4 bids for 3 roofs. So I would like to be informed before you do your contracts or when you're considering doing contracts.
I would like to have some more discussion about that at a later date because that does take us again into that day to day because it's somewhat difficult. But I do agree if there's a dollar amount of a bid that we know would reflect in coming to the board, we definitely can do an email or an FYI so that you are aware and it's on your radar.
Yes, I'd like to make a suggestion to the commission, my board members, that, have we considered or have we ever done a vendor fair where people in the community who own businesses, and that takes us out of, knowing people and calling our friends and telling them about different things, but a planned opportunity where people who own any kind of business, I usually say underwater basket weaving all the way up to roofing, they can come out and then register with you. And in that way, when there are these opportunities that are available, we've done it in my current employer. And so that would be my suggestion to the commission. That way, everyone who has a business from here to California has an opportunity to come out, share with you their contact information and their information. And then when we have these RFPs come about, please send this to our own network of people in addition to the organizations. And I think that would help with the people that and Commissioner Lindsay, that would take you out of the conversation of contacting people that that own businesses that might be able to bid for those contracts. But that would be something that
we'll look into.
I
Ms.
think that's a
Watson's
great
team
idea.
could do. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
good idea. Can I get but we are on the roof, we'd like to we're getting into a rainy season. I'd like to go ahead and at least get a vote or somebody make a motion on statement of award for the RCRC roofing.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we put to a vote, the commission puts to a vote the statement of work for the roofing contract.
An approval of the roofing contract?
Thank you. An approval of the roofing contract.
I second.
Okay.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lapine,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindsey,
No.
Commissioner Miller,
I do not approve it.
Commissioner Mobley,
No.
Commissioner Singleton.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 3 yeas and 3 noes.
I mean, it fails.
I will share with you that this will put us in a position where I will have to reach out to our attorney since that we are not going to approve the contract as listed. Mayor Bob?
I would say this, it's a 3-3, which means it failed. One member is not here. You might, put it back when everyone is here. That would be the only thing I would say you ought to, so there's not a legal issue for the rejection that's on 3-3, that might be strong. And that member could vote to reconsider it since they were here.
And so what we could do is add it to the next agenda, or if there's a special call meeting in between. That will give staff and I the opportunity to respond and prepare.
Okay. All right. So we'll just move on.
Yes, sir. Now is your new business a motion to schedule a public hearing for the enterprise budget?
Let me just say that the public hearing on this is just what's required by law to approve. That's not.
So that just goes on. That'll be at our next scheduled meeting.
Yes.
You have to advertise.
We have to advertise it. So make a motion for that. I think it's made to make a motion to schedule a public hearing at our next normally scheduled meeting on November 15th, 2021. Thank you.
Has a motion been made?
Alfonso or Commissioner Anderson?
What are we making the motion for? I'm sorry.
We're making a motion to schedule a hearing. We have to advertise this, so we have to make the motion to do so. And it would be at our next regularly scheduled meeting in November.
Make a motion that we, I guess, are we tabling this to the next scheduled meeting? Or
Well, it's just a motion. There's no conversation.
Okay.
We've just discussed the budget, which you can go look at, and then we'll have
The public will come in and they will look at.
come in and
The
comment.
actual motion is to just have a public hearing.
Okay.
So,
So make
yeah.
a motion that we have a next public hearing at our next meeting on November 18th.
Yeah.
We have a motion. You need a second.
I second the motion.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lapine,
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Mobley,
Yes.
Commissioner Singleton.
Yes.
Okay.
I've got to leave, so
Sure.
I'd like to, yes, can you run this? All right.
That next item before you is the executive director's report. You have the report before you. There's one change that needs to be made under foundation. The next quarterly meeting for the foundation, that was not changed. That change is for the administration under item 2A. The dates that I have given you all for consideration for your retreat is November 20th or December 4th. For your consideration, and we will have either Ms. Marshall or Ms. Watts will call you over the next week so that we can solidify the time and date for the requested retreat. In addition, you have information before you on the Palmetto Trail, a new partnership that we are establishing, as well as the Richland County Knowledge's Power Steering Committee. We are currently working with them for various activities to reduce drug use in our community. And that concludes my report and your documentation.
I'd like to make a comment. On September 27th, 2021, our board meeting, we were supposed to elect new officers. However, that meeting was canceled due to COVID. So I would like to request a special call meeting this week to elect new officers for the RCRC Commission. The new commissioners received certificates signed by Governor of South Carolina. I know one person, I'm not sure how many received that, effective February 27th, 2021, stating that they were selected. The initial appointment began May 6, 2021 for all of the new commissioners. The new commissioners were sworn in as a group August 12th, 2021. The bylaws state that election of officers are in June, and the new officers will resume their duties at the first meeting of the new fiscal year in July. There are only 8 months left in this fiscal year. Therefore, I'm requesting that we have a special call meeting this week or the following week to have the officers selected by November 2021. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Can we have that in the form of a motion, since that we are in public session, that we give me and the staff the guidance to move forward with establishing that special call meeting?
I can make the motion.
Or you can have the motion made. According to your bylaws, a special call meeting can be called. However, if it is submitted by 2 in writing, Mayor Bob, would that accomplish today if they made a vote tonight, or what would be your recommendation?
I think obviously if everyone's in agreement with that meeting too.
Okay.
So I think you don't need a motion.
Okay.
So I believe what you're saying is this week, or
Next
next week,
Right.
and you need to find out when everyone's there. So
Right.
I think that would be sufficient.
Thank you, sir.
And I would just take, based on that, there are
4
two
members,
members
2.
who got, so you've got that covered.
Thank you, sir. And our final item is Jamie sharing the good news of Richland County, Madam Vice Chair, unless there's anything additionally that you have.
Can I have one comment on your foundation report?
Yes.
I was previously on the foundation board, which is a very good board to be on. But according to their bylaws, they're supposed to have 2 commissioners.
Yes, ex officio, and they are appointed by the chair. And that has not happened because we have not had elections and there hasn't been any new appointments. Once you all do your election, that'll be something that you will assign those 2 ex officio, meaning non-voting members, to the foundation.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Vice Chair Lindsay, and to the rest of the board. It is my job this evening and during most of our meetings to provide for you an overview of some of the programs and the attendance and participation that we have had at RCRC. One of our events that we have had in August was the Ship and Shore. And so many of our active older adults were able to come to the Bluff Road, and they participated as if they were on a cruise ship. Of course, with COVID-19, we are limiting the number of participants that we have, but this event was very well attended, and all of the participants said they had an excellent time. You'll also see they had a little tiki bar where they were able to offer some refreshments and had some of the volunteers from the community that were able to participate. We had roughly over 48 participants there, along with about 10 members of staff to participate with them as well. So they were very, very pleased. Ms. Lisa Smar, and as well as Shantae here at the Park Lane AAC, and several other staff members that work with our active older adults worked very well together for participation. And you'll see also they have a new activity that has started here at Park Lane, which is chair volleyball, which is very, very much enjoyed by the citizens. Also in September, there was the Power in Pink, where we partnered with Prisma Health. There were 25 appointments that were completely filled. We were very pleased with that, of women that came in to have their mammograms. Also, some of our staff members were there, and a few of them, this was their very first time that they ever had a mammogram. And so that they would not feel alone, we also had a little party on the inside. Several of our sponsors know the importance. And even though this month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we kicked off the party a little early in September. And so that was a date that was available where we could start that celebration. And you'll see that it wasn't just the women there, but the men were there as well, not only to participate, but also to help serve the citizens for this event. And that was held at Garner's Ferry. In the Northeast, September 10th, we had our family fun night. When our team looked around at the grounds and saw a panoramic view of families outside just kicking the ball, running the fields. We had a concert that night, plus some food, local food vendors, as well as there were bounce houses that were there for the children, and everyone had a great time. Several of our commissioners were there, and so we really want to thank you for your attendance on that night as well. Our final event that I'd like to share tonight was our senior games. Normally, our senior games are held 5 days a week, but because of COVID, we were limited to just 3 days. And we always like to make sure that we are providing a safe environment. So the majority of the games that were held were outside. And so at our senior games, we added something new this year, and that was water aerobics. In the Hopkins community, we've had a water aerobics class that has been very, very successful. And so as a part of our senior games this year, we also brought water aerobics to the senior games. I will say that we limited our participation to 75 participants, and we had 60 people to register. And in spite of COVID, the largest participation was between the 80 to 85-year-olds. We did have two of our oldest members, I'll say most mature members that were there, and they were 95 years old participating in our senior game. So this, and the citizens said they really wanted to thank the commission and our executive director for continuing with the games in spite of COVID being there. This last picture, I just want to show because this shows the team effort that is exuberated in RCRC. Even though this was an event that was coordinated by community relations, you'll find here that we are working as a team. And this team consists of not only risk management, but our site supervisor, our district supervisor, even some of our part-time members, and as well as our aquatics manager. And so I'm just proud to say that I work for an agency that continues to work as a team. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Madam Vice Chair, that concludes the meeting. We don't have anything additionally, and there are no items in closed session. Okay, we need to make a motion to adjourn? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Make a motion to adjourn.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second. Yes.
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 Thank you.